Alright, today we get to talk about another dumb YouTube comment because I'm starting to see more and more of these from people that don't really understand things. So WSL is the Windows subsystem for Linux, and it recently went open source. Now, I don't know why the fuck they didn't do this a long time ago, because one of the cool things about software these days, and Microsoft is starting to pick up on this, is people will develop features for free and give them back to you upstream so that they can like do their jobs, which is cool. That's like the whole point of open source. So you can benefit a lot from open sourcing projects. So Windows, or Microsoft rather, had developed this Windows subsystem for Linux, more for like developers and sysadmins that actually do need a Linux environment to do their job. But because they work a job, their job forces them to use Windows. And so it's kind of weird dynamic, right? These are people that can't switch to Linux because their job won't allow it. Um, I mean, obviously they can use whatever they want at home, but for work they have to use their work computer. And when I went to this Linux conference, I noticed that everybody was either using Macs or Windows laptops, usually ThinkPads. And I was like, why isn't anybody using Linux except like one of the speakers? And they said, yeah, this is just my work laptop. I can I just use it for work, you know. So what's happened though is developers have needed to run Linux VMs to do a lot of their work, either to like manage Linux servers or do development or whatever it ends up being. They need Linux for some purpose in their job, but they can't actually install it on their work computer. So WSL helps with that because you can run a Linux environment inside Windows without the overhead of a VM. So this is more of an enterprise problem. This isn't really so much a personal user problem because that's what everybody tries to make it out to be. There's this culture in the Linux community of people that can choose their operating system, and so they think everything is a plot to make them either stay on Windows or switch to Linux. But they don't really think about it from the perspective of somebody that is using a computer to do their job. And so you have this kind of disconnect between people where they start to assume malice where there really isn't any, because they assume WSL is a way for Microsoft to stop people from switching to Linux, and that's not really the case. They know that these people can't switch to Linux anyways because their IT staff just won't let them. So it is cool that they've open sourced WSL because now these admins that have to use Linux can become contributors and they can add features they need to get their job done. WSL is cool I mean, like, obviously, you can make the argument that some people will not switch to Linux because they can use Linux in their Windows computer, and so they get all the benefits of running a Windows computer while having a Linux environment. But I don't think that there's any semblance of Microsoft trying to. The direct quote, or rather the paraphrase quote, is Microsoft wants to keep their host OS closed while having an open source operating system inside of it so that you stay on the closed source one. It don't really make any sense. That's a bad argument. That's all I'm gonna say about it. It's Microsoft, their OS is closed. It always will be. Who gives a shit? Like, if you want to use an open source operating system, you can obviously install Linux. But yeah, I just see a lot of these comments saying that this is like a malicious move by Microsoft, and I don't see it. I don't really see a reason for it. I do see that they are trying to get more features added, and they are trying to get contributors because like you can only have so many people working on this, and that's why I'm surprised that Windows has lasted as long as it has, because you have to pay a ton of people a lot of money in order to keep producing this operating system, and that's why some of their updates haven't been so good because they fired all the people that can make them better, you know, or laid them off or whatever, made them redundant, whatever. So that's about it though, like just keep this in mind that WSL isn't really isn't really a way to get Linux users to use Windows. It is a way to get people who use Windows that need Linux a better way to run Linux on their computer. That's about it. Thanks.